Hey everyone, I hope everyone is doing fine today. Now, आज का करियर का सवाल है from our friend Mr. Babu Rao. So he makes us laugh every time, right? All right. So someone told him that CVs should not be more than one page, and he, having so many years of experience, is now worried how to fit everything in one page. So we'll try to help him here. But before we start, let me tell you, I am not in favor of one page CVs. In fact, my own CV is in 3 pages. And at the end, I will show you also my CV to you. So if you join this session to get tips about one page CV, it will be the other way around. All right. But it will still be some useful tips. So you may want to continue with me till the end of this video. Okay. So first of all, why did the trend of one page CV start? Usually, when we are writing CVs, we want to demonstrate all our skills and experiences through the CV, right? Obviously, depending on the level of experience, this may land in multiple pages. Sometimes also it's not just the years of experience. Sometimes also due to some irrelevant information that we don't personally want to let go from our CV. Okay. Now these multi-page CVs requires a lot of time to evaluate and do a screening. In fact, if I remember, when I was supporting actively supporting recruitment in one of my previous roles, I have also seen 5 to 7 pages CVs, right? So in general, a feedback emerged that if you write your CV effectively, you don't need multiple pages to communicate your skills and experiences, and it can be written in one single page if planned effectively. And this is where the trend started. Now typically what happens when something becomes a trend or a procedure or a process, we start following it blindly, and forget the core objective of why we were doing this. And in this case, the core objective was, if you write effectively, right, that was the main focus. But we all ignore that and focused on the one page part only, right? Write your CV in one page, not forget about effective or not, right? So what we did, the length of the content is, we maintain more or less the same, but we started fitting it into one page. Obviously, this made the CV more complex, difficult to read, and more importantly, missing out on the effective sequence of data that is being read by the recruiter. Now, this does not mean that you start writing your CV in 5 to 7 pages, but don't make it more than 2 pages. If really difficult, make it if it is really difficult to fit in say 2 pages, make it up to 3, but definitely not more than that, right? That I will never recommend. But if you still want your CV to be one page, no issues, you can have it, do it, but please ensure, first of all, it's readable. So by readable, I mean the font size and the font style. The evaluator or the reader gets some breathing time while reading your CV, which means there should be sufficient space between various lines and sections. It also follows a convenient sequence for reading, and this is why I don't recommend the CVs to be in that block format, where we have in the single page, or maybe sometimes even in 2 pages we have different sections within the same page, and we try to fit all the information within that. So typically I don't recommend that, but you can use it if you are able to sequence it properly. Okay. So that's what I wanted to convey in terms of what is the concept or what is the logic behind one page or multiple page CV. Now what we will do is that I will go through my CV. I will just pull that up into the screen. It's not my recent CV, and it's definitely not the best CV which you will see around. Like I mentioned, it's already into 3 pages, which many people don't recommend. But I have still, and if I want, I can make it into 2 pages as well. But there is a, if very common saying in IT, if the code is working, don't change it. All right. So this CV is, it is managing me to, get interview calls. It is managing me for the screening of the roles. So if it is something is working for me, I am not willing to change it. But yes, if I put some effort, I can definitely put it into 2 pages. All right. Okay. So let's now go through the CV. Some key highlights. I have made it, like I mentioned, I prefer simple CVs rather than too much of information here and there. I have removed some of the personal information here, so that's why it's appearing to be more simpler. But yes, even if I add those, it will not make it very very different, right? Now, if you see just after my name, I have mentioned about the summary. It is into around 3 lines. Many people, what we do when we are writing CVs, the summary is to give a gist about your experience, right? What you have done and what role you are applying for. Many people give the full details in the summary itself, right? That is the biggest mistake. Obviously, it adds more space. Your summary should be just a high level recap of what is your core experience, what is your core strength. That's all. The next part, if you see, I have split that into, and since I am a cost estimation engineer, there are certain areas which have a certain weightage in terms of what should be depending on the your level of experience. So I have obviously when we are doing cost estimation, there are a lot of different things which we support or which we need to have some good understanding. But the core focus is definitely the cost estimations and the proposal part. So I have mentioned those specific areas first in the as early as possible in the CV. Now, if you see, I have very briefly mentioned about something about project controls. So, depending on what kind of job you are applying, suppose in this case, if I remember that role also needed some experience into project controls part. So, I have mentioned that yes, I have some experience, but look, I have not given too much details about those things because that was not a core area. That is mostly about uh, the person should be have some good information, good understanding about this role, but not necessarily an expert, right? That I have mentioned it briefly. Other skills, which we typically is being sought after for such roles. So I have mentioned those. It also required some information about some understanding about the different vendors, the sourcing strategies, the global markets. So I have mentioned, and this part, even though it was a not core area of the job, I still mentioned because it highlights some leadership skills, right? Once I have done that, then I typically go into the difference experience. So I don't put the same kind of skills for each of the role which I have done. Typically, I put a summary in the first part, and the next part is where I give my company specific or the project specific information. I have hidden some of those the core areas or the names here, so you'll not see this. But yes, just to understand the way the concept I typically put my CV for, right? So this is basically all my job history, which companies I have worked before, and what are some key achievements. I have put more focus on the latest ones because that's what matters more, and also on the areas which are more relevant to this role, and a bit less focus on the my previous roles. Because when I joined a bit, this was the early stage, it was not a lot which I have done in terms of what is relevant now. So that's why I have reduced those parts here. But definitely, I am not repeating the same kind of skills which I have shown in my first page again into each of these companies. So this gives me some space for the CV, and then some tools which are relevant for my role. Definitely, I have mentioned that. I have some familiarity about some other tools also, but since this role was not looking for those, I have not repeated it here. There is no point in adding some tools which are tools or softwares which are not that relevant, still providing all those details. Then comes my education part. Yes, very briefly, just to give the timelines and the school and colleges which I have done. There is no point in at this stage. I am already say 15, 17 years of experience. No point in repeating the grades and all until unless it is being asked. If it is required you can anyway provide it separately to the recruiter. But I am not fill those the grade information here, which will obviously take some unnecessary space into my CV. And there were some other personal information which I have presently for this session I have to. Okay. So that's what I wanted to share today. Yes, the summary is if you are applying for a job, if you're preparing your CV, yes, try to make it a bit effective. Try to ensure that you convey the right message, what is required for the job, in a proper planned way, in a proper effective way. If you can make it in a one-page CV, no issues, but don't make that as your main criteria. The core objective is that it should be effective. All right. All right, that's all is for today. Let me know if what you feel about this one page or multi-page series, and we'll meet again in the next session. All right, thank you.